Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of Frequency and Rain. I'm your host, Devlin Johnson. This episode is going to be called Auras, Chakras, and Frequencies, and we're going to be talking about auras, chakras, and frequencies and their relevance to belief systems, whether it be my own personal belief system or my guest here tonight. My guest is going to be Dakota Brown tonight. He's a very special person to me. He is the catalyst that jump-started my entire belief system, as well as the sole reason that this podcast probably even exists. Um, I ended up cleaning up my language because of him. I used to call girls things like cute, lovely, pretty, gorgeous, things of that nature. And I would get very upset personally when a man would call a girl hot. It's just a personal belief I had. I've ended friendships over it. Whenever I would befriend somebody new and hear them say that, I would just kindly ask them to please not use that type of language around me because I didn't respect it. And if they did use that language around me more than a few times, I would quite literally just end those relationships because I took it as a personal offense. That being said, whenever I met Dakota, I soon got the impression that he was a man of faith. And for some strange reason, I was driven to just not take the Lord's name in vain around him. I stopped saying GD. And anytime I did say GD around him, I made it a point to articulate that I would apologize genuinely and try not to do it again. To which he was amazingly understanding and even went so far as to tell me that was not necessary. And it may not have been necessary for him, but it was necessary for me because I take a very special viewpoint in making sure that people know that not only with my words but with my actions, I'm being genuine and authentic. And it was just important to me that he know that. So with that being said, without further ado, let's get started. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Dakota. Give the people a little bit about yourself as well as your own spiritual beliefs and what governs your thought processes and your faith.
Hey everybody, my name's Dakota. I am a Baptist Christian, um, and I am a network engineer by trade.
Perfect. And another little thing about Dakota, he's actually the gentleman who got me a job working with the same company that he works for. Some, I wouldn't say it happened completely by chance. I don't believe in random chances. I think that he was sent to me for a very specific purpose. And that being said, let's get started. Um, we're going to get started with chakras. If you're unaware of chakras, we each have chakras located in our body, that being the sacral chakra or the sacrum, located at the base of your spine at the very bottom, right underneath your tailbone. It is the root chakra. It's what governs being grounded, um, feelings of safety, etc., etc. Above that, you have your solar plexus chakra, which is right above it, in between the navel and the top of, for lack of a better word, genitals. Um, Above that, you're going to have your third eye chakra. Above that, you're going to have your heart chakra. Above that is your throat chakra. And then you'll have your pineal gland, as well as your crown chakra. Um, that being said, all of them come together in balance and harmony once opened in order to give you spiritual insight, messages, visions, etc., through meditation, prayer, um, all of that good stuff. And their relevance to frequencies being that each chakra is going to have a resonant frequency, those being the solfeggio frequencies. And the solfeggio frequencies are a set of frequencies that are determined by the basis of a 432 hertz tuning, which, if you're not familiar with frequencies and tunings and whatnot, um, every single musical instrument on this entire planet used to be tuned to a resonant frequency of 432 hertz. Some of the greatest composers of all time, that being like Mozart, Beethoven, um, Bach, all of these gentlemen back in their times, not having the technology we have today, would have used tuning forks in order to tune their instruments. And when you strike a tuning fork in the key of A4, which is the A above middle C, it will resonate at 432 hertz. It's the most resonant and natural frequency of everything. Everything is in tune with 432 hertz. To go even deeper into that, 432 hertz is incredibly significant due to the speed of light, the circumference of the Earth and the Sun. If you know anything about the speed of light and whatnot, I don't recall if it's 432,000 miles per hour squared or 864,000 miles per hour squared. But if you can do simple math, 432 double would be 864. So it's just kind of strange that these frequencies are directly correlative with things that are naturally occurring, that being like I said, the circumference of the Earth, the sun, the speed of light, etc. And when you start to think about frequencies in that nature and their relevance to music, it's been said that people who have come upon the realization of 432 hertz compared to 440 will listen to songs at 440 hertz and have feelings of increased anxiety, um, overstimulation, fear. Sometimes notes clash. It causes dissonance. And when listening to the exact same songs in 432 hertz tuning, they end up feeling feelings of empathy, feelings of love, feelings of calmness, alleviation of depression, and all of the unnatural, dissonant things that they feel when listening to 440 hertz. So, what do you think about like frequencies as your understanding and application to your beliefs, Dakota? And do you have any personal experiences, whether they be physiological and or physical, that you would like to share in relevance to that?
Yes. So my favorite genre of music is early 2000s rock and hard rock. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I listen to specific kinds of artists and like melodies and stuff, uh, I would get like these feelings of warmness uh, and things of that nature. One of my favorite artists is POD and Creed. I listened to them in my youth, but I here recently I came to the realization that they're actually Christian bands, and that makes me feel more connected to it because we have the same belief system.
Yeah, so they're more resonant with you.
Right.
And when you listen to songs like this, why don't you describe some of the feelings that you have while you listen to them?
Um, well, it depends on what mood I'm in sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I think about whenever a certain Creed song comes on, I think about my girlfriend a lot. But also, I think about our Lord and Savior as well. Like through My Sacrifice by Creed. I know it might sound cheesy, but I feel like it's the Lord talking to me, like His sacrifice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And I just want to articulate here that what we're talking about right now is quite literally how songs and music can evoke different kinds of feelings depending on the lyrics that are located in these songs, the thought process that went into the lyrics, um, the feelings that you're feeling before you start listening to the song, and how these songs. Would you say that before listening to a song like My Sacrifice, if you were in a bad mood, that listening to that song could elevate your mood?
Oh, always, always.
Always. Exactly. And I think that myself and every other person who listens to this podcast would agree. Maybe not to that song specifically, but if you just break it down into a blanket statement, I think that every single human on this planet, if they are feeling a certain way, they can just put on a song that resonates with them and it will quite literally bring them out of a bad place or a bad mood. Or you can even listen to songs that um, will change your mood for the negative. I mean, there's music that's been made and produced that had a lot of hurt and pain that went into the lyrics and stuff in those songs. And you can be in a good mood and a song can come on that reminds you of a negative experience you had and it can make you sad as well. Or you can be sad and listen to songs about heartbreak and whatnot and cry your heart out to those songs, but it's not really that the song is making you sad. It's just that it's quite literally touching your heart because the lyrics resonate with that experience that you had. And the reason that I'm saying all of this and articulating it so specifically is because I really think that humans have a, for lack of a better term, a brainwashed understanding of how significant the music and the content and the words and the thoughts and the thought processes and the intent that goes into all of those things and how significant they really are to our existence in the world. I mean, like I said, if you think about 432 hertz compared to 440 hertz, why is that even a significant change? And to go even deeper than I already have into that, the Roman Catholic Church is the driving force that instituted the change from 432 hertz to 440 hertz back in 1939. Whoa, what did he just say? What is that significant? What happened right after 1939? That'd be World War II, everybody. And sure, you could say prior to that we had a World War One. There were civil wars. That's
And the
human nature
nuclear
throughout
bomb.
history. Yeah, exactly. So that's the main thing is we've had a bunch of wars and stuff prior to this. It's human nature to war, and we're born in sin. We men especially have some sort of prideful nature that stems from being a man and fighting for what you believe in and what's right. And we take that to an extreme sometimes, and that's what causes war. And if you think about it, our ancestors and our grandfathers, our forefathers, all of these people have experienced war and violence, but there was a much more respectful understanding about war and violence back then. And I mean, if you guys have ever seen the movie like The Patriot with Mel Gibson, and we're talking about like the Revolutionary War, there was a lot of the Geneva Convention and stuff like that wasn't in place yet, to my understanding. They didn't have laws like that for war. War was brutal back then, and even back then, without these laws that govern how war should be handled, you would find compassionate soldiers all around who would find soldiers that would surrender and become prisoners of war. They would feed them, they would take care of them because they still had a basic understanding of generic human compassion, depending on their belief system and what governed them. And I think that truly righteous people who may have participated in these wars back then are those people that showed that human compassion towards even the enemy. And that's exactly what is preached in the Gospels. That's how Jesus was. He didn't judge anybody. He didn't matter what walk of life you came from. He didn't matter if you were good or bad or whatever. What mattered to him is that you were honest with yourself and the people around you, regardless of whether you were righteous or you were a sinner. If you were a sinner and you knew that you were a sinner and you voiced that you were a sinner, it's safe to say that you were being honest with yourself. And even though you were sinning, you probably took that sin and all of the changes you needed to make in your life up with God. And that's exactly what he wants. And the problem with that today is people are so driven to form this image in everybody else's eyes as to how they see them, which means they don't want to look shameful. They don't want to feel guilt, whether it be through somebody else's interpretation of them and their actions or within themselves. And so they will lie and they will be deceptive and they will tell people certain things to get them to form an image of what they want them to look like instead of being honest with themselves. For example, if you have an eating disorder. And by the way, I don't mean any offense to anybody doing this. This is just an example and a hypothetical. But if you have an eating disorder and you meet somebody new, it's probably not the first thing that you mention to them. And it's not that it's significant. Maybe you have your own personal reasons for doing that. Maybe it's not even from guilt or shame. But if it is, you're not telling them that because you're scared of how that person is going to view you after you give them this piece of information. So a lot of people who have insecurities and stuff like that will either hide and or lie about those insecurities to make sure that the image their friend or their newfound um, resonant soul interprets and forms images about them. And I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think that it's a good thing in the sense that you're causing your own dissonance within yourself because you're lying about yourself to somebody else. And you're going to go home that night and you're going to question why you feel like shit and why you feel anxious and why you don't feel good about it because you told somebody something about yourself that wasn't true. Pardon me. And so I just wanted to make it a point that if you go about your life today partaking in any of the actions that I just described, whether it be lying to your friends about your true nature, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, out of fear, shame, or guilt, I strongly urge you to meditate and or pray and or just look within. You don't, if you're not spiritual or you're an atheist or something, that's okay too. But I think it's very important that everybody on this planet figures out who they truly are. Because if you don't know who you truly are, that's okay too. You can't be blamed. You just don't have that knowledge there yet. But if you're not seeking to know the truth about yourself, you're putting your own well being and your own future at risk. Case in point, I suffered greatly for the last 30 years of my life. I hope you guys can all hear my voice starting to crack and see the tears welling up in my eyes, even though you can't see me, because I knew nothing after my innocent child and the early teen years that I had besides suffering and anxiety and guilt and shame. And that's because I used to do the exact same things that I just talked about. I would lie to people and tell them things that were not true. And they weren't necessarily significant lies that hurt anybody. But for example, this one's a TMI one, but I used to tell people that because of my nature and my morals and integrity, that I never watched porn and that I never jerked off. And Every single person that I told that to, especially women, because you guys are very intuitive, probably laughed their asses off after hearing this. But I used to say things with such conviction and such confidence in my words that I don't think that any of those people necessarily didn't believe me. They may have had their doubts, like I said, especially women, because you guys are intuitive and you know damn well every man on this planet jerks off, and so did I. And it's just something that is in a male's nature. But I felt the need to describe myself as somebody who had the highest of standards and was governed by the highest of integrities. And doing that is considered a sin. And this is also while my belief system wasn't even established yet. My belief system during this time was agnostic. I didn't think that my opinion mattered nor that it should even be voiced because I didn't know. I wasn't there. I couldn't see Jesus. I couldn't see God. I didn't try to talk to God. And so my belief system was just is essentially that I will neither say that there is a definitive highest power or God. I will also not decline the existence of one. I just don't know. And so after, the 30 years that I was guilt ridden and shameful and whatnot, after finding Dakota and just cleaning up my words, that brought blessings. And then I found a Bible in my pastor in my church, which brought more blessings. And then I partook in my water baptism. And the blessings are just coming more and more and more now, steady in abundance and consistency. And you can choose to believe me or not. I'm not here to judge. I don't mind whether you do believe me or not, but I can tell you, as somebody who has always been a man governed by honesty, in the sense that I told small white lies previously without the intent to cause harm and damage. Now that I'm telling the truth, even in the fact that I hope you guys can understand that what I just shared with you is something that, you know, 4 months ago, previously for the last 30 years of my life, I would have never have told anybody because it was a secret that I kept that I didn't want anybody to find out. And now I can speak about all of the secrets and small white lies that I used to tell freely and truthfully and honestly without conviction because I've already forgiven myself for those things. And there's just something to be said about somebody who can come clean and admit to themselves that everything that they think they've done that was wrong or is of sinful nature or whatnot, regardless of the significance to you specifically, it's okay. It's totally fine. And even if you said or did those things with the intent to lie to somebody or to hurt somebody or to do something bad, you don't have to be that person anymore. And you can change your belief system and your thought process and the way that you govern your life going forward right now. That's exactly what I did. Case in point, I don't know why I was driven to stop saying GD around my guest tonight, Dakota, but I had to do it. It was something that was eating away at me. I every time I said it, I just had this little voice in my head saying you shouldn't say that. And I didn't know what it was. And finally, whenever I decided to act upon it, blessings, like I said, just started coming in aplenty. So I just want everybody to know that if you have any sort of self-doubt or anything like that, that's okay. But if your life is anything similar to what I describe mine as, if you're experiencing suffering, mental illness, anxiety, then please, please, I beg of you to take these words to heart because I don't want you to feel that way. I can empathize with you. I used to feel that way every single day. And then I used to put a smile on my face and lie about it. And it will cause so much dissonance and bad things to come your way. If you're feeling like crap and bad inside about the stuff you're saying and doing and thinking, what do you think the universe is going to get back to you? It's all a duality. If you think bad thoughts, that's what the universe is going to send your way. And guess what? Here's a little thing about evil. Evil and the master deceptor Satan, he's the great deceiver for a reason. Okay, when you get blessings while you feel like this, it's not gonna seem like the devil. He's gonna reward you. The evil shall prosper and the righteous will suffer. He's going to make himself seem like an angel or like someone who's here for your best interest when he's not. And that's where that other dissonance comes in. You don't know what you're talking to or what's talking to you or what is sending these frequencies to you, if they're good or evil. But I promise you, once you start thinking good, thinking clean, eating clean, being clean, you won't have to worry about that and differentiate between good and evil. You'll know it's good. And so, Dakota, after all of that being said, I'm sorry that was kind of a long-winded explanation. And that's because it was
Yeah, you're
significant.
fine.
Yeah, I just want you to think of anything that resonated with you while I was speaking, and if you have any, once again, personal or physiological experiences that you can share in relevance to that, let's hear it.
Well, I before the podcast, I did like our conversation of indigo,
Mm-hmm. Yep, auras.
and yes, I would like you to discuss furthermore into indigo.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and give the people some personal experiences and or testimonies, etc., of maybe just a moment in your life where you maybe told a small white lie or something of that nature, and maybe you had an instance where you came clean about it and then you received a blessing that you interpreted as a blessing. Or maybe you did something that you didn't mean to hurt somebody, or even if you did mean to hurt somebody in the past, and after you changed your thought and belief system in it, maybe something good came your way. And if you don't have any examples of that, like I said, if anything I said resonated with you, why don't you just go ahead and articulate it a little bit further and just describe what it meant to you and why it resonated with you.
Yeah, so whenever I first met my girlfriend, um, I didn't think much about her
Hmm.
whenever she came into my life last summer actually, whenever I invited her to my house to join us at the pool party. Um, After getting to know her after the first time I met her, I didn't
Hmm.
really think much about her. But then I don't know, there was just this feeling that I had where I had to reach back out to her again because I was missing something.
Hmm.
I don't know what it was. And then now, fast forward uh, 4 months, 5 months, and she's one of my best friends. I cannot stop talking to her, and we go on dates, and uh, yeah, I just love being around her, and I don't know how to explain it.
No, that's great. And the best thing about that, whenever you can't explain something, the entire world knows the definition of that, and they would articulate that as a coincidence. But we also know that coincidences don't exist. So I just want to, I just want to say that I'm driven to tell the crowd that maybe or may or may not be listening tonight that whenever you have feelings for people that you just can't describe, whether they be good or bad, that's called a gut feeling. That's a message being sent to you. That's a feeling being sent to you by a resonant frequency and or an evil dissonant frequency. And that would me and Dakota had a conversation at a past time where we were talking about like the hair on the back of your neck standing up feeling, and we were able to articulate now with this understanding that that doesn't just happen. First off, and it depends on the nature of what's going on in your environment that determines what you actually feel. For example, when you hear a song that you gotta listen to it more and your hair stands up, you don't feel hurt or fear or attacked. But when an
It's
intruder
a warm,
enters your
fuzzy
home,
feeling.
yeah, it's that corny, warm, fuzzy feeling you get at Christmas time when you feel love. And when an intruder enters your home, or you walk into a bar and you just get this weird feeling, and the hair on the back of your neck stands up and it feels like a bad vibe. That's the exact same message being sent to you, but from a dissonant frequency of warning. You can feel that dissonance, and it causes a physical response from you. And so, in lieu of what I was saying, it may not be a feeling of your hair standing up or whatnot. It can be any sort of feeling, but that I think the reason that Dakota was convicted to say that in lieu of what I was talking about earlier is just that, whenever I was telling these lies, my hair may not have stood up, but I felt guilt, I felt shame, I felt those horrible things that come from telling a lie. And there's times where you can tell lies to get something. Maybe you lie to your boss about being sick so you can get the day off, and maybe you don't even feel guilty about it. But if your boss picks up on that and then confronts you on your bullshit, you're going to feel that. I promise you. Nothing good comes from lies. Even if you get that day off and you take it, it's going to eat you away
and
sometime.
and your lies will always find you out.
Exactly, no matter what. And then you got to think about the lie and how did I say it, and it's just a vicious cycle, and nothing is ever going to come from that that's good. And that's kind of like the main point in that long-winded explanation that I gave about those frequencies and stuff. If you are so depressed and anxious and just upset with your life, and why God, I always have good intentions, this is things I used to say to myself. Look within, find out those things that you truly do hate about yourself, because I hated those things. And none of my friends would describe me as a liar from my Gnostic belief in my past life. None of them would describe me as somebody who wanted to hurt anybody. They would describe me as this loving, caring, generous individual who would give you the shirt off of his back, and he's always down to help. And even if he's doing something incredibly significant and he's busy and he's working on himself, he will stop what he's doing and he will come help you. That's the type of person people describe me as. And that's what I externalized. My mom taught me at a young age, if you don't got something nice to say, don't say it. But the things that I thought, they weren't nice. and they weren't clean. And I had an ego. And I'm a very intellectual person. That's not trying to brag or anything, just stating facts. I thought that I had all the knowledge I needed. If I didn't have it, I could acquire it, learn it, and apply it very quickly. I have an uncanny ability to take even the deepest, most complex ideas and understand them and learn them and apply them directly. I also have an uncanny ability to take those same complex ideas and simplify them for somebody who may need me to speak in layman's so that they can understand them and then apply them. And so, all that being said, we'll wrap up the talk about frequencies. I hope you guys take everything that I said there to heart, and we'll move into auras. Um, Dakota mentioned earlier that he wanted me to go into that and articulate that, and we got about 5 minutes left to do so. So this will be a little bit brief. We'll talk about a few things that we've encountered and interested in our understanding of auras, which my understanding is actually very basic. I'm studying theology and religions and my own faith and everything like that, and frequencies and all the stuff that I want to cover in this podcast, which is a large amount of stuff and information. But auras are really, really cool and significant to me because I had an experience with another friend who's very significant to me, whom I've never met before, at least not in person. And I ended up speaking with her about like auras and stuff and whatnot. And I decided to pray and meditate on the conversation that we had. And I literally, while my eyes were closed, I could see the most vibrant hue of red come in from the left, and then the most vibrant hue of blue come in from the right, and just combine and merge into this finally balanced, just perfect ratioed color of like what my auras are, those being red, blue, or indigo, and then my physical manifestation or my tertiary color of magenta. And that's exactly what I saw when that color of red and blue combined into that perfect ratio of what I am. And so when it comes to auras and stuff like that, just know that you all have one. And it kind of goes into like that bad vibe scene that we talked about. If your aura is unclean and dissonant, people will sense that, especially women. I really want to make that a point because women, men out there, if you're listening to this, listen to your woman, bro. They're intuitive as shit. Like they know something that we don't pick up on. And men are really good at articulating things and being logical and stuff like that. We all know that women are very in tune and in touch with their emotions, and that's where your auras come from. It's how you feel, it's how you act, it's your subconsciousness, it's what governs you. That's why men have such an issue, in my opinion, relating to women, because we're governed by the conscious, not the subconscious. We're governed by what we see, what we can touch, what we can smell. Women, that stuff speaks to them, but they're more governed about how they feel about when they touch something and how it makes them feel. And so when your woman gets a bad vibe or a bad sense, don't just write it off as, oh, it's your hormones or whatnot. They usually feel that. And I mean, sometimes women are their own greatest enemy, and they don't even know how intuitive they are. And that's what stands in their way, in my opinion. But men are really good at figuring that out. And so just make sure you listen to your women and everything like that. With all of that being said, talking about indigos, I believe that I'm an indigo child. I know that now. And when we were talking about indigos, Dakota was literally getting, he showed me the hair on his arm stood up. He wasn't listening to a song, we weren't listening to music, we weren't even talking about love, we were just reading something. I was reading something to him, and he had a physical response to it. So Dakota, why don't you go ahead and just tell the crowd real quick what you felt while we were discussing that and how it resonated with you when it comes to auras.
Okay, I'm getting it again, but I just get like this big, great realization that, oh man, putting it into words is something different.
That's a trait of the indigos.
It's just it clicks all together.
Uh-huh. Makes sense.
And yeah, it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's really cool that you said that, because I have the belief that whenever things just make sense, and to articulate a little more, Dakota's never really studied auras previous to this, correct?
No,
Yeah,
that's
so
correct.
he has no understanding of
No.
what we even went over, yet for some strange reason his body is driven to physically respond to the words that I say, and my my belief is that it's something that he just knows deep in his soul to be true. And when you have feelings like that you can't describe without any sort of basic background or knowledge or understanding of them, and your body responds physically or psychologically, that's because, well, the words that I'm saying, words being sound, sound being frequencies, they resonate with him. And even if he doesn't believe it because his mind won't let him, his spirit knows it to be true. Right?
Correct.
Perfect. And with that being
while
said,
sorry, while you were talking, I kept getting the the little goosebumps.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. We're gonna end up having to do something a little different now. Maybe not. I thought that our time here was limited to 30 minutes, so this episode can drag on just a little bit longer. I thought we were going to cut off, but we are going to wrap that up here now in just a little bit with talking to that. I just want to finish up by saying that I don't want anybody to think that any of this stuff is just gibberish or hoo-ha or these guys are crazy talking about frequencies and sounds and they believe that it can affect us, et cetera, et cetera. If that is your belief system, that's okay. No judgment. You're welcome to believe what you want. But I'm going to assume that if that is your belief system, you think this is just hoo-ha, you're probably lying about your external life and your reality. You're probably lying to yourself and your friends. And if you're not, this isn't an accusation. But I'm going to assume that's true. And I'm assuming that that's true because I used to think the exact same thing as an agnostic. I may not have definitively been able to say that God is real or not. I didn't have an opinion on it while I was agnostic. But I didn't believe in magic. I didn't believe in, you would have never been able to convince me as a man of logic and science and agnosticism back then that a sound could make me feel anxiety or was the main reason I had anxiety. You would have never been able to convince me that the food that I was eating was causing diseases within myself because I was a young, strapping lad. But there's just something to be said about the experiences that I'm having, the experiences that my previous guests have had in speaking with me or their own personal experiences and testimonies, as well as quite literally the physical experiences that Dakota has encountered while being here and while talking to me. Even right now, as we've discussed stuff on this podcast. And so I just want to make it a point that if anybody out there is listening and you are not happy with your life, please take these words to heart because there's a stigmata along mental health that every single human on this planet, in my opinion, has been brainwashed to believe, and that's that whenever you ask somebody, if you have a friend that hits you up, for example, and they say, I'm having a rough time, Dakota could be like, Dev, I'm having a bad day. I don't know why I'm having such a bad day. I just need someone to talk to. And when most people do that, there's a generic response that most people give to those friends, and they go, you know what, I can't stand the fact to see you upset, Dakota. It sucks. I'm really sad that you're going through a hard time. But don't worry, man. Like, it'll get better. It's going to be fine. Cheer up. Pick your head up. That's just the generic response we give to our friends. And it's not from a bad place. It's to try and cheer them up. But people who are hurt and depressed and they're seeking that out usually aren't seeking that answer. They want to be listened to and whatnot, and they're looking for validation. And when you tell somebody who's depressed that they need to just be happy, you get that other response. And this is the stigma. Don't you think that if I could just be happy, I would have done that already? You think I haven't tried just being happy? I can't control this. And I'm telling you now, that used to be my belief. That used to be my outlook. I used to reach out to my friends seeking nothing but validation and pity. Okay? That was my intent. And no, none of my friends would describe me as seeking pity or anything like that because I didn't externalize that. That's the thoughts that I had inside. And if you tell someone you're just looking for their pity, they're probably going to write you off as a pitiful fucking coward or something of that nature. They're not even going to want to speak to you. So I understand why people don't just come clean and say that stuff. But at the same time, had I would have done that, I would have gotten the correct response and I would have been forced to look within and solve that within myself. And that's what I'm telling everybody else. It is that easy. Listen to me right now. You are the only person who has control of you and your thoughts, with the exception, in my opinion, of the universe, our Lord and Savior, God, whatever name you want to give him, even you atheists out there who call him the nothing. There are governing forces out here, good and evil, that govern how you feel. And those are the only things that can change how you feel besides yourself. So if you feel anxiety, if you feel depressed, if you feel fear, if you feel doubt, it's going to be up to you to change that. And it starts with you. God and that kind of stuff, they're not, the universe, none of those things are going to be able to reach you if you, first off, if you don't believe in them. And they're definitely not going to be able to reach you if you don't believe it's even possible that you can start this catalyst. I didn't believe it either until I started doing it and practicing it. Okay. And now, Dakota, why don't you go ahead and tell the people what your impression of me was prior to my spiritual or my faith and my journey and my newfound belief system. And then go ahead and describe how even just anything that you feel convicted to tell people, how I talked, how I acted, how I conducted myself, etc. And then tell them the difference that you see in me now.
Yeah. So whenever I first met Dev, he was different. Like,
And it wasn't a bad way being different.
No, it wasn't a bad way. It's like he didn't understand completely what was what was, I don't want to say this meanly, but he didn't
No
understood what
offense.
was going on, like
Within
in the
myself.
background of things. Yes,
Yeah.
and then after I started hanging out with him on almost a nightly basis, almost every night we would hang out and talk. Uh, I started I started to notice a change in him that
Well, before you describe the change, how did I used to talk back then? Did I talk like I was a happy-go-lucky, just cup
no,
half full kind of guy? Yeah, exactly. I talked like a glass half empty kind of guy, didn't I?
yes,
And even though you got that feeling, did the words that I used insinuate that I was depressed or anything like that?
no,
See, perfect example, case in point. Dakota's an honest man, so this isn't like some scripted thing that we're just trying to manipulate people with. I never once would, nobody could tell I was depressed or that I was suicidal or that I was angry or that I was upset because I didn't want to take those feelings and project them to other people. But that's what I was feeling inside. And even though Dakota said it best, he didn't sound like that, but he could just tell that that's what was going on, right?
right.
Right, and you were driven to kind of like console me and make me feel better, even though I didn't seem like I needed consoling. I didn't voice needed consoling. You could tell in your heart that I was not okay. And if I
Yeah,
were to
that's right.
invite any of my other friends and family in here, and with that being said, I've got friends and family who would 110% validate that. But Dakota didn't even know me. He had no idea who I was, what my belief system was, why I chose to use the words I used, why I seemed to always have this good moral intent, and I sounded like a guy who saw the glass half full. Yet on the inside, he could tell that I was a glass half empty, broken soul. And it's
Yeah, I
just
could feel it.
yeah, exactly. And if you guys resonate or you guys can feel or you guys have any experiences similar to the stuff we're talking about, I hope that that's validation enough for you guys to not consider this stuff hoo-ha or just some crazy schizophrenic episode that we're having or that we're manic or something of that nature. Because that's what people who talk like this are described as. There's another stigma about that, that people who believe in stuff like this are just whack jobs and stuff like that. And I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy, and the stuff that you feel and that you know deep down in your heart, you know that shit, you know that stuff for a reason. There's a
What are the odds
reason.
of multiple people feeling this way?
Yeah, yeah, we could talk about that real quick. Like, it seems like every single person on this planet felt a shift in 2023. 2023 was a horrible year for almost every human in existence for some reason. And we felt this shift. And you can go on Google right now, Google 2024 awakening,
Dude,
and you will find
yeah.
hundreds of articles and blogs of people who feel a shift going on right now. They can't
I
describe it, they
lost my
can't
job
explain
last
it.
year, but this year is just going really good so far.
I didn't even have a job last year. And January 4th of this year, me being an 8, 4 significant to me, I'm a life path number 8, 4 significance being half of 8, I was given a job by Alliance Machines Inc. Dakota being the catalyst of that as well. And I won't get into details right now because that story in and of itself is freaking insane. I got a job that is resonant with me, that I love doing. I'm gonna cry right now. I cannot describe how thankful I am for that. But 2023 was the most garbage trash year I've ever had. And as soon as 2024 hit, January 4th, I was blessed with a job that jump started all of this. And now we're on this podcast and I'm doing stuff that I love. And I have a goal to retire my mother this year. And I know in my heart it's going to happen because my faith is strong and the universe isn't going to let me fail because I won't let me fail because God won't let me fail, in my opinion. That's my belief system. And boy, do the blessings come in abundance. I was just showing Dakota my piano earlier. I've wanted a piano my entire life. And I have a beautiful Henderson made in 1907 that I've adorned with my books. And I'm not a materialistic person, but being an indigo child, all of the things that I've come to acquire is almost like an extension of myself. I I don't hold physical things any relevance to a physical thing in the sense that I'm materialistic. I hold significance into it that all of the things that I've acquired in my belief system have a soul and a thought process and a consciousness, and they're an extension of me. They're a tool that I can utilize to become a better person, whether it be through the knowledge that I obtain from my books and my research and my studies, or the feelings of joy I get when I read science fiction novels and the stuff that I love to read, not like to read. I love reading this stuff, or the swords that I have adorned as well on my piano because I love carrying around a sword that is teaching me principles that govern that I am mentally strong enough to solve all of my issues, and that I do not ever resort to physical violence, period, unless it is a secondary response to somebody attacking me first. The principles of the Aido sword style that I'm learning: never strike first. You only strike in self-defense to sustain and protect life, whether it be yours or somebody else's. And I just love that. And there's nothing that you could tell me that would change my mind, because I'm convicted to just have that belief, and it speaks to me, it resonates with me. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap this up here. I want to thank Dakota Brown for being one of my guests. And Dakota, if you have anything left to say, go ahead and just let the listeners know if there's anything that you have personal testimony wise about anything we've discussed during this podcast or in the past that you think that they need to hear, as well as how maybe speaking to me over the past few months and coming to debate and podcast and just chat with me has changed your life for the better or for the worse. Because if it has changed it, I need raw honesty. And if I'm out here, preaching and or sharing my ideals, and it starts to cause dissonance in something with somebody, I need to know about that so that I can choose better words that speak to you better, because my goal is not to cause anything but love and forgiveness within every single person that listens to this podcast or that I speak to now or in the future.
Yes. The last few months, if I didn't have Dev, I don't know what my thought process would be. I don't even know if I would still really be strong in my faith. But after I met Dev, I just feel a stronger connection to my spirituality.
Sorry, is it a loss of words? I love that, man, and I love you. I love all of my listeners, and I love your genuine and authentic choice of words. And I know that even some of the stuff that you've shared here probably wasn't easy for you to share, and it may be something that you don't share with a lot of people because you're scared of judgment or something of that nature. And I don't sense that anymore. I feel like maybe especially after this podcast, that Dakota would be comfortable telling everybody in the world that POD and Creed's his favorite band, even though they're labeled as Christian bands. And he may not tell other people that because he's scared of what they might think. And I don't think that he feels that anymore. I think that if he did in the past, that it's gone. And I'm not even going to attribute that to myself, because anything that I do is not of me. I'm governed by a higher power, that being God, in my belief system. You can call it whatever you would like, no judgment. But I'm convicted to just try and help everybody from a place of love now, not from a place of knowledge or power or wisdom or understanding like I used to be. It's all just love. And I love Dakota. I know he loves me back. And that's why we can have raw, honest conversations like this. And that's the point of this podcast, is to have these raw, honest, loving conversations and talk about our own personal experiences, not something that was written down in a book by a professor or an agnostic or someone who does or doesn't share our same ideals. This is the stuff that we experience on a daily or a nightly or spiritual basis, and it's true to us. And I think that all of our fellow listeners are going to be able to tell that it's true to us because of the emotions and the tone and the words that we choose to use when we have these conversations. And so all of that being said, I want to thank our guest tonight, Dakota Brown, for discussing chakras and auras and frequencies with us and sharing his own personal experiences with me and everything that we've gone over in the past. And I just want to say I love you and I appreciate you. And I love and appreciate all of my listeners. And just go ahead and, like I said, anything you're convicted to say before we wrap this up, let the world know what you're thinking, brother. All right. That being said, he chose to be a man of silence here, and that's okay. But we love you, everybody. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Catch me next Thursday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. If I don't run into any more technical errors like I did tonight, it's going to be a late night podcast release. Apologies for that, everybody. This is your boy, Devlin Johnson, on Frequency and Rain. Let's give a big round of applause to our guest tonight, Dakota Brown. I'll catch y'all next Thursday. Much love. Peace.
Frequency and Rain.